Heyo everybody, Haku here with a quick video, and it's kind of a new type of video I'm going to be doing. I just watched the Dragon Prince book one, and I was so excited. I was like, okay, I've got to talk about this. I really want to talk about this. So I tried recording this video once, but I was just so scatterbrained, excited, talking about everything that I missed out on a bunch of stuff I wanted to say. So for these videos, I'm not going to be taking notes, not going to go much into editing or anything. I'm just going to talk about a series that I liked. If I watch a new show I like, play a new game I like, something like that, I'm just going to do a quick video and talk about it and my thoughts really quick. So I wanted to talk about book one of The Dragon Prince before I got started on book two. I loved it. I really, really did. Trying to organize myself better for this video. First, I think I'm going to talk about the story, then the production quality, and then lastly, the characters. I loved the characters. And because characters are like the biggest thing for me in any series. Quick warning before we get into it. I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts on the series, so if you haven't seen season one of the Dragon Prince and you don't want to know what happens, yeah, no, I'm going to be talking about what happens in book one / season one, whatever. So I'd been hearing a little bit about the show. I had no idea what it was about going into it, and like I said, I just got finished watching it. I only watched it one time, so forgive me for anything. I'm just talking about something I enjoyed watching. But I know it was by a lot of the same people who worked on Avatar The Last Airbender. And this, I feel like, was not the masterpiece Avatar The Last Airbender was, because Avatar The Last Airbender is like the greatest fictional story, in my opinion, or at least the closest to perfect that a fictional story has gotten that I can think of. But it was still very good, and I think this is the kind of show you have to stick with. Because episode 1, I was like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this. Episodes 2 through 5, I really got hooked into it, and the latter half of the season, I just loved. So it felt like as the show went on, I just loved it more and more as I got to connect more and more with the characters. Some of the criticisms I have starting toward the beginning, are very light. There's only one main thing I can think of, and even then, that was only for the first few episodes, and that is that, when we started off, they would just, it almost was kind of self-parody seeming at times. They would just throw out these, I'll send the blood message by the Shadowhawk, and they're talking about moon shadow elves and stuff, and they're just throwing out these terms that, if you're new watching this show, you have no reason to like. It's like, I don't know what these terms mean. They're all meaningless to me, and you're just tossing terms at me. As if I should be like, oh, cool fantasy terms. So that's one of the only criticisms, is that was kind of funny towards the beginning, but again, that didn't last very long before we get more into the lore, and I mean, that doesn't really seem cheesy anymore, and even then, that's not much of a criticism. That really didn't hamper my enjoyment of the series at all. But as far as the story goes, I really like the premise of it. I feel like the story revolves mostly around the characters, so when I talk about the things I really, really like, I'm gonna more talk about that when I get into what's going on with the characters. The main thing with the story for me was just to say how I thought it started off a little slow, but then, by episodes 2 through 5, I was really hooked, and it just got better as it went along, which is why I'm really excited to see what Book 2 and Book 3 have to offer, and I don't know if it ends after that, or if we're having a Book 4 or not. Please don't spoil me on future things. I'm going to be watching this show, and I guess I'll do another video whenever I finish Book 2. So next, to talk about the production quality, one of the only criticisms that I've seen of this show was with the production quality, with the frame rates that I saw at the beginning at the first few episodes, and that's one of those things where it felt like once they got into the pace of making this, that really wasn't a problem anymore. It was really only the first 2, maybe 3 episodes where it was really noticeable, where it's so strange. I've never had this experience with a show having dropped frame rates. I don't like, because I've watched plenty of shows that had a low budget that were okay, there's a lot of recycled animations or very limited animations where it's just, they make sure that their shots are in such a way where it's just character's face framed and the mouth is moving and that's all that really needs to be animated, or same thing with just doing a walk cycle for kind of a long time. This had none of that. That was like sort of padding for time, but the animations were kind of stilted and like 3 frames per second, which I thought was weird, but it got better throughout the season. Plus, that wasn't all the time. That was only certain scenes, and it was weird how certain scenes would be like that, and certain scenes you were like, oh, they had so much fun with this, because you could see like some scenes were animated like so well, and it was like, whoever animated this had fun with this. They really wanted to make this look the way they wanted it to look. And I think even the frame issue-y type stuff towards the beginning, it really didn't make me dislike it that much, because it kind of gave me this feeling, like if you watch a YouTube video and it's sort of like stripped down. I mean, not to be like, oh, what I'm doing, like me, but no, where you can tell it's just like a single person making it, putting their heart into it or whatever. And there's kind of just this aspect of that you really like, as compared to like some really corporate big budget thing where it's clear that it's just like a whole bunch of, oh, it's my job to work on this part, it's my job to work on this part, and there's not really a soul to it. This didn't feel like that. This, even the little sort of issues here and there, just gave it that extra flavor, gave it a little bit of soul, which I thought was nice. And it really genuinely felt like people making something that they enjoyed making, and I love to see things like that, because you can tell sometimes, like when you watch a show or play a game, there are times when you can tell that this is like, oh, they just made this a certain way to make money or whatever, and times when you can tell, oh, they really put their heart into making this really good. And that's not to say that putting your heart into it or it being corporate necessarily makes it good or bad, because it doesn't. It can be good or bad either way. But there's something I really appreciate about that feeling when you're watching something and you're like, oh, they really enjoyed this project. They really put their heart into it. So real quick, before I talk about the characters, one other thing I wanted to mention is the dialogue I really loved. I thought the comedy was really nice most of the time. And the wordplay and dialogue reminded me a lot, actually, of Young Justice. Now, I haven't watched Young Justice in a couple of years, I think, but that's what, like, this reminded me of a lot, is, like, that first season or two of Young Justice. I felt like a lot of the sort of dryness to the humor a little bit, but sort of the wordplay and making fun of just certain words in a cheesy way really felt like that to me. But talking about the characters, because this is one of the best parts, I liked the king. So, crack theory here. Again, spoilery if you haven't watched season 1, but I'm assuming you have at this point in the video. I think the king is still alive. This is one of those stories where I'm like, nah, I liked the king, and maybe I'm being, like, overly optimistic, but I just get the feeling that he isn't dead. Now, probably my favorite character, at least up there for my favorite characters, was actually Viren. Viren was so funny in a lot of his scenes with Gren and with his children, and what makes him a really compelling, I suppose, villain, at least antagonist for season 1, what makes him really compelling to me is how he made me question many times whether he was a bad guy or not. He made me question, wait, is he doing this because it's like a selfish play for power, or is he doing this because he legitimately thinks it's best for the survival of humans who were wronged by the dragons and elves in the past? And then there were moments like when he came to the king and the king wouldn't listen to what he was trying to say, but it seemed like he was actually saying, okay, I will sacrifice myself for you to live. It made me legit think, if the king wasn't that prideful there, would he have actually sacrificed himself for the king to live? Like, that's the thing. He's done some, like, bad things that make you think, okay, he's the villain, but he's also done things that made me think to myself, is he really that bad a person? Like, the fact that he made me question whether he was the bad guy so much like that, I thought was really, really cool. The aunt, I forget her name, was a really cool character. I thought having her, I'm not certain whether or not she might be deaf, but at least having her be mute and speak in sign language, from what we know so far, was really a cool and interesting touch. I thought it added, again, extra flavor, extra soul, just something different, some sort of identity more into the show. It made it more interesting than it would have been otherwise. I really liked Grant. I thought he was really funny. Soren might be my favorite character. I thought Soren was so funny. I enjoyed his character so, so much. Another character I really like, Callum. Callum was such an easy to fall in love with character. A character that I easily and quickly was like, okay, I really like this guy. Rayla was one that I thought at first I was like, I don't know how I like her, because I was scared that this was going to fall into this tropey thing that if you watch anime, as I do, it happens kind of a lot in anime, where there's this trope of normal guy with no powers or whatever who gets badass alien or robot or something to that effect girl who falls in love with him, and basically she doesn't get that much development as a character. She just serves as a proxy for him in fighting situations and adds into that sort of like self-insert male wish fulfillment thing of having this really, really cool attractive girl that does everything for you. So I was afraid that she would fall into that tropey thing of being, oh, really cool elf girl who likes him and like will do whatever he says and won't get much development herself. But she totally did not fall into that. She had tons of personality, was one of the funniest characters. I loved Rayla's character, and very quickly I came to love Rayla's character. After only 2 or 3 episodes, she was one of my favorites too. Her design's really cool. I thought that just generally her story arc in this season was really good. Which reminds me of one thing I wanted to bring up. I think the closest thing, again, if you're an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, the closest thing that this first season came to an episode like The Storm, which a lot of people point to was like, oh, Avatar: The Last Airbender was really, really good, but when you got to The Storm and you really got into like Aang and Zuko's backstories, that's when it all just became so excellent for the rest of the series. The moment that came like this for me was, I don't remember if it was almost a full episode or if it was around a half episode, but there was this stretch of time where maybe it was around episode 8, I think, where we spent a long time of just them up on the cliff and up in the tree, Rayla and Ezrin talking, and Callum and Ellis talking, and it sort of almost kind of was just this closing moment, this recapping and understanding of what all of their characters had gone through in the story up until this point. And that was a really, really cool stretch of time in the show, and maybe my favorite stretch of time in the show, beyond maybe some of the funny things like Human Rayla. I think that was one of the best things so far. And this quick video is turning into something not too quick as I keep talking, but I really, really did enjoy all of this. Another character, Ezrin, is one that at first I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to like Ezrin. I ended up really liking Ezrin. So again, all 3 of those main characters there. I really like Ellis and Ava. It was Ava, right? Not Aya? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Ava. Ellis and Ava, I really liked a lot. I liked their story. It came in really late in the season, but I just immediately felt for them as characters. I really like their character designs. So I don't know if they're really going to stick around a bit because they don't have the same sort of motivation that the rest of the cast does. But I'd love to see them more often in the story going forward. And I think that was most of the characters I liked. I named most of the characters, period. The only 2 characters, one character that I was pretty neutral toward, I don't want to say I dislike, but I definitely didn't really like, was Bait. definitely was not the lovable Appa or Momo, again, comparing this too much to Avatar The Last Airbender. But that's because there are definitely similarities you can see. And also, I'm an idiot. I totally neglected when I was talking about the animation and stuff to say that the soundtrack was incredibly, incredibly good. The art style was very good. There were just a lot of things that, because a lot of the people that worked on Avatar The Last Airbender worked on this, there are a lot of similarities you can draw. But Bait as a character was one who I didn't really like, didn't really dislike. The thing with Bait is that Bait was used often for like burp, fart type humor, which it's not necessarily bad, especially in something that isn't necessarily aimed for kids, but definitely is strongly something that a lot of kids could and will be watching. There's not anything necessarily wrong with it in certain situations, but the reason I'm a little bit critical of it in this situation is just that it didn't really fit the tone of the rest of the comedy, and it didn't really fit the tone of the rest of the series. The rest of the comedy was sort of more based on sort of wordplay, and it was a little bit of, how do I describe this? A little bit of that sort of really modern 2010s kind of comedy of like sort of making fun of, I don't want to say like neo-Dadaism, but like making fun of traditional words and stuff and their wordplay and everything, and just the cheesy puns and wholesome stuff like that, but done in a way that works for older audiences. And it's just that like the fart humor and stuff didn't really, it was like a tonal shift that didn't really fit with that. And the other character, the only character that I would say I kind of disliked was Claudia. She seemed very like, the best thing was it, okay, if you've seen The Hellsing Abridged, is her name Rip Van Winkle? I think in my first time when I went to record this, I might have said like Rumpelstiltskin, but I think it might be Rip Van Winkle, where in The Hellsing Abridged they're like, lol, so random, homestuck burritos, and like that's the kind of vibe I got from Claudia, and a lot of times she was like anti-funny, and the only times when I thought she was genuinely really funny, it wasn't even because of her, it was like when she was like, Unstoppable's just another kind of stoppable, and the funny part about that wasn't her, it was Viren dying inside because she's his daughter. Or later on, you know that thing when you think of something funny, so you laugh like an idiot, even like just randomly out in public because you think of something funny? I do that every time I think of Catalyst. Every time I think Catalyst, I just laugh wherever I'm at. It's so stupid. I can't listen to it or think about it without laughing. Catalyst is just, and I'm tearing up now just like thinking about it. Catalyst, I don't know, it worked for me so much. And one of the funnier parts, like, not only was Catalyst really, really funny, but Claudia just dies laughing, and then she picks up the mound of dirt and she's like, oh, and this would be the shortest, which led to more of Soren being funny, saying, no, I'm not sure you even got the first joke. I loved it. Oh, it was so good. That was one of the best parts in the entire series. That might have been better than Human Rayla or the scenes when they were all just talking up on the mountain. Also, another thing I think I could lodge as kind of like a mini criticism, but again, it was something I didn't really care about, was sometimes it felt like things just kind of happened, and there wasn't really much explanation. It's like, okay, well, this thing just happened. Now we're moving along. There were a few, especially towards the end, where it felt like there wasn't really a rhyme or reason for certain things that we saw. It would just be like, okay, this thing happened, and now we're moving on from it. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I really loved it. So I'm excited. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there on, and this recording is twice as long as when I recorded the first time, but I guess I am a lot more comfortable talking right now. So yeah, I'm going to do more videos like this. Even though it's super long, I still might just call them quick videos or quick vids, just because it's something that I'm not going to put a ton of like editing or time into. I'm just going to record me talking about some new game I played or some new show I watched and throw it up on the channel. Because there are a lot of times when I've watched something and been like, man, I wish I had the time to really do reviews or anything for that, but it just takes too long to do a full review or anything. So yeah, instead of trying to take and do a full review or something, if I watch something new and I like it, I'm just going to do a quick video to talk about it. And yeah, if anybody wants more videos on this topic or other topics or has any suggestions for me, that's totally cool. I think I might be doing some more of these soon. Right now, one that I know I really want to talk about when I finish, that I'm like halfway through, is Kipo and the Age of the Wonder Beasts. I don't know why I'm watching cartoons on Netflix all of a sudden, but I'm like halfway through it and I love it. I think that it is like one of the best things I've watched, animated or otherwise. I am absolutely in love with Kipo and or the Age of the Wonder Beasts, I think is the full title. So yeah, I absolutely love that, and I want to talk about that too whenever I finish it. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server to talk to me or more of us, just ask and I can give you a link. And if you want to help support the channel on Patreon, it's patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description. And that kind of helps me to keep making videos. But either way, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.